our rabbi. She's not our woman rabbi. She's just our rabbi. But still, the fact that our rabbi is a woman is noteworthy and bears mention on an occasion such as this. Because, you see, Rabbi Newman Kamin has truly been a trailblazer. This may sound like a given. After all, as a woman in one of the first classes of the Jewish Theological Seminary to include women, clearly she was going where no woman had gone before. But that's not what I mean. You see, well, she could have taken a different path. Rabbi Newman Kamin chose a path of leadership. She has taken on roles that put her in a position to ensure that her perspective, a female perspective, has a seat at the table. And that a progressive female voice is heard. She has chosen to impact generations of women leaders to come. As Rabbi Annie Tucker, Rabbi of Beth Hillel B'nai Emunah, wrote in this afternoon's program, thank you for leading the way for so many of us. However, Rabbi Newman Kamin hasn't just ensured diversity and inspired the next generation of rabbis. She has inspired all of us and our sons and daughters to see leadership in the Jewish community as not just open to all, but the responsibility of all. She has inspired all of us to incorporate different perspectives and allow these different perspectives to help form our own spirituality, our own connection to our faith, our history, and our community. As an outsider walking into Am Yisrael, it must be remarkable to see not just a woman on the bima, but a congregation full of women wearing talitot. I'm happy to say that my daughters will never feel the discomfort that I felt when I chose to begin wearing a talit 30 years ago. To the contrary, because they've grown up with Rabbi Newman Kamin, they will never think for a moment that their choice to fully engage in the Jewish experience, or their choice to don talit and tefillin, is in any way strange or unusual. And yet, for those women who may be interested in taking on the mitzvah of talit, there's a disconnect. Because while we have a woman on the bima and women in the pews wearing beautiful talitot, the talitot that are available to borrow on the rack out front are definitively masculine. But this absence has been an opportunity. I am very pleased to announce, on behalf of the Board of Directors and staff, that in the next week or so, we will be receiving 30 feminine talitot. This is a congregational gift on the occasion of the Rabbi's 25th anniversary. As you will see from the drawing, the new talitot aren't just feminine in color, they incorporate the tree from our tree, from our art. And there's an even deeper meaning here. Because if you see the writing on the Atarah, it's a Tayim Hi Lama Chazikim Ba, the Tom Hachad Neushar. It's a tree of life for those who hold fast to it. The phrase is somewhat unique in that a Tayim Hi uses the feminine. I can't think of a better way to honor the woman who teaches and inspires us than with these words. I will close with a simple Toda Rabbah on behalf of the congregation. To you, to Dan, to Shai, Zach, and Charlotte. Thank you for all you have given to Am Yisrael over these 25 years, and thank you for all you have yet to give.
So I'm sure that's a first. I don't know that that's happening anywhere in the world. So another unbelievable first for Am Yisrael. And yes, they kept it from me. I had no idea. Okay. So I was thinking, in looking at the program, that I requested for the concert Anna Bakoach and Timmy Thompson, Why Can't We Live Together? That may be everything you need to know about me. I requested both of those. I think it says a lot about sort of how I grew up and how I've embraced Judaism, but there's still a piece of rock and roll there. So, all right, I'm going to try to breathe. So I have this very strong memory of driving into the parking lot of Am Yisrael about 26 years ago, and I would liken it to arriving for a blind date. And I remember sitting in the parking lot. I hadn't come into the building, I hadn't met Rabbi Frankel, and sat in the parking lot. It was probably at first, I was a couple minutes early, and wondered, like, is this going to be the place that I'm going to end up? Is this like where my future is? So, you know, it was just a passing moment, but who could have known, sitting in that parking lot, what the next 25 years would bring. There's so much that I could actually say about it, and I'm grateful to the Chicago Jewish News and to JUF News and to the Winnetka for having given us wonderful publicity in publishing these articles, and so hopefully you've read them, and so you have heard a little bit about the journey, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about it today. But I have to say that 25 years ago, the world for women rabbis was a different place. And so while I don't like to focus just on my gender, there were not many congregations that would have even, I didn't like to say this in the early years when I was negotiating a new contract, that there were very few places that would have given me a job. So now you know the truth. It was, but it was really Rabbi Frankel who gave me my chance and my opportunity. I didn't meet with anybody else. I didn't meet with the board, didn't meet with another congregant. Rabbi Frankel interviewed me, Rabbi Frankel hired me, and that's kind of the way it was in those days. And I'd like to think that he saw something in me that at that point I didn't even see in myself. And he was an incredible mentor. And also I really have become very close friends with his family. And it's hard to really say. I feel like the older I get, the more like him I actually am. The more his vision of what a conservative synagogue could be. Really, I feel like it took me 25 years to grow into some of the innovations that he had brought to Chicago Jewry 40 years ago. I've also been unbelievably fortunate that I've spent the 25 years of his journey with pretty much the same people. With our cantor, with Nancy, with Ryan, with Dr. Elliot Lefkowitz, that all of us, it's one of the amazing things about Am Yisrael, the continuity that this congregation has, which I think is part of, again, our unique nature, that we have all been here together, and everybody that's at Am Yisrael gives 150%. And of course, a bright future for our school with Charlie Sherman, and we're grateful for Nan and Lady and for everybody that works here, because everybody, I think everybody really in some way looks at being here as a calling and not just as a job they do. And now all of our wonderful musicians, but one of them is moving across the country, but will be back with us on the high holidays, but the wonderful musicians that we've added that have enhanced so much of what we do. But I really want to thank the congregation. I came here, I was 30 years old. I will be 55 next month. So basically, that's a big part of my life. I mean, that's almost my entire adult life that I've spent at this congregation. I came here right out of school as a student, so every rabbinic first was here. My first wedding, my first funeral, my first Devar Torah, my first, I did have some experience teaching, but everything that I learned, I had to learn here. And the space and the support that those of you that were here in those days gave me to enable me to be able to grow up here. My first mistakes were also made here, and you forgave those, and I appreciate that very, very much. In our tradition, it says that you are supposed to make a friend and acquire a teacher, and I hope that I have been a friend and a teacher to each of you, but you have all been a friend and a teacher to me. And I said this at the end of the Chicago Jewish News article. I have learned so much more from you than you could have ever learned from me. I learned everything that I needed to know about being a rabbi from being with each and every one of you. Our children grew up in this congregation. This is their home congregation. I kind of felt bad they didn't really have a rabbi, but they at least had a home congregation. And I'm sorry they couldn't be with us. They're all over the place, but with us in spirit. But the person who's shared this journey with me, of course, the most is my husband, Dan, and I want to say these words to you. I said them to you under the chuppah. Ve'eres tichli le'olam, ve'eres tichli b'tzedek u'b'mishpat u'b'chesed u'rachamim, ve'eres tichli be'emunah, v'yadat et Adonai. I betroth you to me forever. I betroth you with me with righteousness and justice, with love and compassion. I betroth you to me with faithfulness, and we shall be at one with God. In our tradition, there's a beautiful midrash that comes at the beginning of our Siddur, and it quotes a verse from Proverbs. And the rabbis loved wordplay, and they did a lot of wordplay, and they loved it. And so they take a verse from Proverbs that says, she opens her tongue with wisdom, and a Torah of loving kindness is on her tongue. And then they ask the question, well, isn't it obvious that Torah is a Torah of loving kindness? Why would you have to specifically say that? Isn't it redundant? And so they say, well, it must mean something very specific, because they could have just said Torah is on her tongue. Why do they say a Torah of loving kindness is on her tongue? And they want to know what actually is a Torah of loving kindness. And so they give a couple of suggestions. And one says that Torah that's studied just for its own merit, just for the love of Torah, that's a Torah of loving kindness. But another commentator says no, a Torah that's studied in order to teach, that's a Torah of loving kindness. And really, that's all I ever wanted to do, was to study Torah and able to teach. And I hope that I've been able to share 25 years of a Torah of loving kindness with all of you. Somebody asked me recently, are you planning on retiring? I said, God, no. So I hope that we'll have many years to continue to study the Torah of loving kindness. And I ask you to please say the words that we always say together when we reach milestones. If you could please say the words of the Shehacheyanu together with me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehacheyanu v'kiyanu v'kiyanu l'zman hazeh. And now, words that I've uttered is more than any other Kiddush downstairs.
Put that tape in the library? I don't know. It's up to